Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're doing wonderful on this lovely summer's day, as it is in Newcastle. As you can see in front of you today, we are looking at the VAT Proficiency 2025, the quiz, the final round, as it were. So if you've attended 5 of the last 7 sessions, today is when you will qualify for the badge. It's going to be myself and Michael guiding you through the questions today. And it's going to be around about 60 minutes, if not a wee bit less. But as you've attended the other webinars, you'll know the rules. We'll go through them anyway. So your microphone is automatically muted. Don't worry if you're going to cough or sneeze, you'll not interject or interrupt anything that we do. Also, you do have the ability to send us questions. Today, we're going to be mainly asking you the questions. But if you do have anything, pop it in. We'll try and answer it if you can. There may also be a round where you have to put questions to us in order to answer what we ask. So stay tuned for that one. Like I've already said, it is the VAT Proficiency 2025 webinar series, 5 of the 7. So if you can tick off 5 of these that you've attended, we will be doing that also. The quiz is the last one, mandatory. Now the badge will be sent out to you via the end of July because we're running these sessions again. Once it is, display it on LinkedIn, put it on your CV, show everybody that you are now proficient in VAT 2025. It's great to advertise, and I love to see them on LinkedIn as well. It's great to see all the engagement that we have with you guys. So thank you in advance. Now, what are we going to be covering in the quiz? Well, we're going to be covering everything that we've covered, essentially. Just a select few questions of each topic. We're going to be looking at tax codes, VAT return, VAT verification settings, running reports, corrections, and then there is a special final round also. We'll be going through some further support and Q&A at the end as well, if needs be, but hopefully it is just all going to be you guys answering. If you are struggling, anybody out there with sound, what I would recommend is potentially logging out and logging back in again. Spot on. Spot on, excellently. Superb. And we are just sorting out the sound issues there if there potentially is one, so that should be that resolved. Right then, moving forward. So how is the quiz going to run? So take part and give it a go, essentially. It's all a little bit of fun today. So you give us the answers. Nobody's going to be marking apart from yourself. Okay, so it's just a little bit of fun that you can have, self-marking. So just honesty piece. And if you want to try the quiz again, we're running it again tomorrow at 11. So that'll be superb if you want to join us for both. So it's an opportunity to test your knowledge. There's going to be multiple rounds. Not all of them have the same amount of questions in. Hope you appreciate that. And we're going to be using polls to answer. Some of them will be multi-choice, some of them will just be one choice. But again, just give you answers. We'll share the answers at the end. Then I'll hand over to Michael, who'll run through potentially a couple of demonstrations, as well as the correct answers per round as well. Again, must emphasize, results aren't marked by ourselves. Your attendance is enough. All we require is just your knowledge, essentially. Are you confident? If not, then maybe revisit some of the webinars, maybe redo the badge again. Completely up to you. But as you can see there on the right-hand side, there's an example of one of the questions. Who is your favorite webinar presenter? Not going to be asking you that one because it would be rather unfair on Michael, I believe. But there is going to be similar questions asked throughout the quiz. So without further ado, let us begin. Round 1, we're on tax codes. So the first question that you're going to be seeing, it will appear on your screen momentarily. And it is to do with the webinar, the first webinar that Michael ran right at the start of the proficiency quiz. And it is going to be, where can you view and amend your tax codes? Is it going to be settings, company preferences, settings configuration, or settings control accounts? Once we get to around about 75, 80% that I've answered, what I will do is move on to the next question. Because I appreciate some people won't potentially be clicking on the poll and they may be writing these down, but We do require you to make a selection before we can move forward. So as many answering as possible is brilliant. So where can you view and amend your tax codes? It's question 1, round 1. Okay. So there is just a few people saying that they can't hear at the moment. I'm just checking that I can be heard by the majority of people, because it may be just an issue with certain PCs. So if somebody could just say, yes, I can hear you in the questions, that would be wonderful. If not, I will try and resolve that issue. But until I hear that, we'll move forward to the next question just to make sure. So I'm going to close that poll now. And let's have a look and see where we went. So brilliant. Thank you, guys. I can see you all saying you can hear me. Brilliant. Thanks for that. Where can you view and amend your tax codes? 29% have said settings, company preferences, 66% settings, configuration, and 5% have said settings, control accounts. Fantastic. Next question. So question number 2. And this is again in relation to your tax codes. What is the default tax code for non-VATable transactions? So what is the default tax code for non-VATable transactions? T0, T2, T9. Not to help anybody be out, but if you did have your program open, you potentially could source this answer. Remember, we're not going to be checking over your shoulder to how you got the answers. If you don't want to use any help, that's fine. But, you know, you could do if you just want to boost that confidence. Excellent. We are at 63% now voting, so this is great. Going up and up and up. As soon as we get to that 70, 75, we shall move on to the next question. Brilliant. So last few seconds, I'm going to close that question off. So put your answers in. And on to the next. So where did we go there then? So the majority went T9, 68%. Then 5% at T2 and 26% T0. Again, Michael's going to go through the answers. But let's have the final question of round 1. So, final question. Where can you configure the F11 and F12 function keys? This is something that Michael challenged you with interactively. Where can you configure the F11 and F12 function keys? Is it settings, company preferences, settings, configuration, or tools and options? Again, not to drop any hints, but if you've got your program open, you can have a bit of a look. Michael's giving me stern eyes there across the desk. Superb. So we're up to 36% now. Again, wait for that 70%. And then this, remember, is the final question of round 1, tax codes. The next round is going to be on your VAT return, just in prep for that. Tax codes is nearly over. Superb. So we've got the magic number. Let's share the results with you and let's have a look. So 68% tools, 29% settings, and 3% company preferences. There we are. So that was question 3, Q3, represented in the top left. And now what we're going to do is hand over to Michael, and he is going to go through some of the answers with you. Over to you.
Thank you, Matt. Right, we'll quickly run through the answers to the tax code questions then. So I'll share the right screen, that would help. So question 1 was where can you view and amend your tax codes? It is within settings and configuration. So you can see some options within settings, company preferences. You see your nominal codes within your control account, but your tax codes, it's specifically settings and configuration. So point if you got that one right. Question 2, what is the default tax code for non-VATable transactions? So this is something we did cover in the session on tax codes, T0, T2, T9. People often use them sort of interchangeably, sort of mistakenly as well. So T9 is for transactions not involving VAT, where you do not want them to be picked up on your VAT return. It does mention non-VATable on the tax code list, but also if I just quickly show you in the software, if you actually go into settings and then company preferences, just ask me for my password, and then on the VAT tab, one at the top there, it will actually say your non-VATable tax code. So you can check what that is. So it's often used if you find you're entering a journal and it's not picking up T9 by default, it means someone's gone in there and changed it. So a T9, I can see it's set to that. So at some point, if it is different, someone would have had to have gone in and selected something else from the list. That's where you can check that one. Back to the slides there and the answers. So again, if you've got T9, which is correct, give yourself a point. Question 3, where can you configure the F11 and F12 function key? So many of you took part in this hands-on exercise in the tax code session, and it is tools options. In there, you've got options. So F11 by default, it gives you access, or when you're working in CH50, when you press F11, it'll give you access to the Windows control panel. So if you needed to change your settings, for instance, not commonly used these days. And also F12. So F12 by default will open the report designer, but there are probably easier ways to access the report designer these days. So what we do suggest is that you configure them for other uses. And there's a great article in our help center on how you can do that. So you can copy some code in, paste it in, so that has different functions. So the example we gave you in that session was pressing F12 to open the tax code checker article. Again, that code is on the help center article if you need that. So again, if you choose tools options, another point. Right, we're going to go on to round 2, which is the VAT return. Back to Matt.
Superb. Thank you very much, Michael. So here we go, VAT return time. Now, with this one, particularly, we do have a few more questions. There is, I believe, 6 in total for your VAT return, part 1. Let us begin straight away. So, question 4 of the quiz should be in front of you now. What's the first task you should complete in the VAT return wizard? Is it take a backup, enter your VAT period, or check your VAT verification settings? So I am known for labouring this point. But what is the first task you should complete in the VAT return wizard? Taking a backup, enter your VAT period, or check your VAT verification settings. I'm very pleased with the answers that I'm seeing so far, and I will share those with you shortly. As soon as we get to 75%, it would seem that labouring the point has actually worked. So what I'm going to do is close that poll, share the answers with you. So I'm not going to give away the answer, but 100% of you have said take a backup. I wonder. Next question. So, question 5. Can you manually undo a VAT return once it has been reconciled? This is a simple yes or no. So can you manually undo a VAT return once it has been reconciled? So remember the 3 stages of the VAT return wizard? Which one? Yes or no to this? Answers are flying in again. Here we go. Superb. We are up to 65%. Again, this is 50-50, so if you're not entirely sure, then what you can do is just take an educated guess on it. Again, you're marking your own work here, so don't feel too precious over the answer. Might just be a learning point. I'm going to close that now, though, because the majority have answered. Healthy majority. And the majority went 89% said no and 11% said yes. Again, we shall wait for Michael to guide you through the answers on that one. Next question is going to be question 6. Once you've calculated your VAT return, can you alter the transactions that affect it? Yes or no? So once you've calculated your VAT return, can you alter the transactions that affect it? Again, remember the stages that I guided you through. Step 1, 2, and 3. If you cast your memory back to there, can you adjust or alter anything once you've merely calculated your VAT return? Some good answers coming through so far. Impressed in which the speed in which these are being answered as well. Good confidence. Super. I'll reveal the answers now. Just a couple of seconds. Share with where we went. So 94% have said yes, we can alter, and 6% have said no. Nice 50-50 one there. Question 7. When posting the VAT transfer, which 2 nominal codes is the reconciled VAT transferred from? Sales tax and purchase tax control accounts, sales tax control account and VAT liability, and purchase tax control account and VAT liability. So this isn't a trick question, but will require the memory. Guided you through a demonstration on this one as well. So the 2 nominal codes, the VAT transferred from sales tax and purchase tax, sales tax and VAT liability, sorry, and purchase tax and VAT liability. So remember that in this process, it is something that you can do in order to tidy up your numbers for reporting. It's also something that can be done automatically or manually. It's up to you. Fantastic. We are at the magic number now, so I'm going to share the responses with you. There we are. So 91% say sales tax and purchase tax, 8% sales tax and VAT liability, apologies, and 2% purchase tax and VAT liability. Superb. Wonderful, wonderful. So last 2 questions of this round. Question 8. What does it mean if a VAT return status shows as pending? Does it mean that you haven't made your payment yet? The VAT return hasn't been submitted, or the VAT return has been calculated but not yet reconciled? So remember, there's columns in your VAT return section module on the left-hand side. The word pending will be in there. What does it mean? That you haven't made the payment yet, the VAT return hasn't been submitted, and the VAT return has been calculated, not yet reconciled. Superb. So again, we've reached that magic number. I'm going to close that question off, and we're going to go to the final question of the round. After we've had a look and seen where everybody has placed their chips, as it were. So 7% is because you haven't made your payment yet. 72%, the VAT return hasn't been submitted. 21%, the VAT return has been calculated, but not yet reconciled. Final question of the round, question 9. You can manually mark a VAT return as submitted. Yes, true or false? Which is close to yes or no, but true or false? I think the hot weather may be getting to me today. So you can manually mark a VAT return as submitted. True or false? Excellent. I'm not going to speak too much on this question because if I do, I will end up giving you the answer. And I've already been frowned upon because I think I may have relieved a couple of answers for later questions. So in traditional Jackie style, during the previous quizzes, what I shall do is close that question off and reveal the answers for you. So 74% say true, 26% say false. And what we're going to do now is move over to Michael, who's going to go through the answers with you for that round.
Thank you, Matt. Just trying to find the right option so I can accept control here. Spare me one moment. Always have a technical problem here or there. Just spare me one moment there. There we go. Right, you should be able to see my screen now. So let's get onto the right screen and we'll get stuck into the answers. So first question in this round, question 4. What's the first task you should complete in the VAT return wizard? Well, you can actually complete any of these. Doesn't really matter. You can actually specify your VAT period if you want to, or you can check your VAT verifications, but we're going off Matt's advice, take that back up. It's the first thing you should always do. Even if you're just going in to check your figures. We've had it in the past where people have, they've gone in to check the figures, they've calculated, and then just out of habit, they've clicked reconcile. You flag your transactions and you think, oh, right, take that back up. We can't stress that one enough. So point if you said take it back up, I'm going to say minus a point if you chose either of the other options. So make sure you take those backups. Right, question 5. Can you manually undo a VAT return once it has been reconciled? And this is the reason for taking that backup. You can't. So you cannot unflag a transaction because it's VAT reconciled. The only way you can undo that is by restoring that backup, that first task you need to complete when you access that VAT return wizard. Take your backups. Question 6. Once you've calculated your VAT return, can you alter the transactions that affect it? Now, I think it's probably some of the answers here. It was possibly in the wording of the question is once you've calculated your VAT return. So when you go into your VAT return, question or step 1, that first tab, when you work down that, your option at the bottom, calculate, that's when it will find those transactions for you, possibly any late entries. Do you want to include them or not? But at that point, you can still close out of a VAT return. It's not until you reconcile. It's the point of reconciling when it commits your figures. So that's when it sort of locks that VAT return and creates it, and it flags the transactions appropriately. But until that point, if you just calculate it, you're checking your figures, you can always close out and you can make amends if needed, whether that's a deletion, editing a transaction, or possibly even adding in missing transactions. So correct answer there is yes, you can. Question 7. When posting the VAT transfer, which two nominal codes is the reconciled VAT transferred from? So the correct answer there is the sales tax and the purchase tax control accounts. So yes, ordinarily you will be impacting on the VAT liability as well, which is mentioned in the other two. But essentially what you're doing by posting those VAT transfer journals is transferring the reconciled VAT amount out of those two control accounts. Now the two control accounts, you can check those if you are wanting to check yours. They will be set up by default, but you can always check them by going into the set. In fact, I'll quickly show you this one. Just quickly share my screen. If you go into settings and then down to control accounts, you've got your VAT on sales and your VAT on purchases. So 2200 by default for your sales, 2201 for the VAT on purchases. So it's those two control accounts that you're essentially transferring that reconciled VAT amount out of. What should that you then be left with is the VAT you haven't yet accounted for. Right, quick movement back to the slides. So what does it mean if a VAT return status shows as pending? There's quite a bit of a divide this time round. So it actually means the VAT return hasn't yet been submitted or hasn't yet been submitted from Sage itself. So it's quite common where maybe if you've got VAT returns going way back, that maybe you didn't submit them online via your software at the time. You were just maybe logging into the government gateway or direct to ROS, entering your figures online. So you weren't actually submitting online, and the VAT returns just shows as excuse me, as pending. I'll quickly show you that one because I do have that, just in case, just to avoid any confusion. So there are some other columns on there as well, but it was the status column that we were referring to. So this one has been calculated, but it hasn't been submitted online via the software. And it brings us on nicely to the next question as well, if we go back to the slides. You can manually mark a VAT return as submitted. The correct answer to that one is true. So if you've got those older ones and where you have submitted a VAT return online, then you can literally just open that VAT return and flag it. So there's a little tick box, and that's there for the payment area as well. So if you have done that manually, you can always go into the VAT return and just flag that. I'll quickly show you the one I mean. So again, back to mine, into this one. So in the submit to HMRC, you'll get this similar option if you're in Ireland as well, where obviously Ireland, you don't submit online via software as such. You print out your reports, but you'll then come in and you can just tick this box to say you've actually submitted that. What that will then do is in the status column, it just updates it to submitted. So answer to the question, can you manually mark a VAT return as submitted? Yes, you can. The answer is true. Right, okay, we're going on to round 3, which is going to be relating to the top 5 questions session that Matt ran. So back to you, Matt.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much indeed. So yes, next round, round 3, top 5 questions. So this webinar was created because of the most popular questions we were getting asked routinely during VAT webinars. I hosted that one, and these next few questions, 3 in total, 10 to 12, are going to be based on that webinar itself. So let's, without further ado, begin. Question 10 of the quiz. Where can you see which tax codes belong to the VAT boxes in your VAT return? So where can you see what tax codes belong to the VAT boxes in your VAT return? Use the drill down in the VAT return, settings, configuration, tax codes, help and about, settings, company preferences. Superb. So where can you see which tax codes belong to the VAT boxes in your VAT return? Excellent. A lot of people voting now, which is good. All coming through. As soon as we've done that, we will move on to the next question. Going to be guarded over what I say about this question because I'm wary of giving the answer away. I'm going to close that one off now because we have reached the magic 75%, and we'll go through the majority. Majority went with 85%. Used the drill down in the VAT return, 14% settings and 1% settings company preferences. Sorry, 40% settings configuration and tax codes. Superb. Next question, question 11. We are flying through the quiz. So, can you post a journal to appear on your VAT return? Can you post a journal to appear on your VAT return? Very popular question, this one comes through. May require a tiny wee bit of thought, but the answers were definitely revealed during the webinar and also in the webinar on corrections. Answers are flying in at the moment, which is great to see. It's always good to see quick and speedy answers when they come through. Again, with it being 50-50, if you don't know, because you don't handle the VAT returns or anything like that, just have a stab. It might be one of those things that you want to educate yourself on later on. But we've reached the magic number, so let's see where the majority went. 88% said yes, and 13% said no. Final question of the round. Question 12. This is a multiple answer. So, why might your figures not match the control account balances? Select all that apply on this one. So they should always match. Future dated transactions, VAT scheme, or non-VATable journals are posted to the control accounts. Select all that apply. So why might they not match? Is the answer simply, well, they should? Is it because of future dated transactions, the VAT scheme, or non-VATable journals being posted to the control accounts? Just to answer a question that came in there, yes, the session is recorded and you'll be sent it an hour after it is completed. So you have missed any of the questions, for whatever reason, you can always rewatch, or you could join us again tomorrow for the same quiz. Nothing more fun on a Friday than a quiz with myself and Michael, that's what I say. It's worth just going to work for. Superb. So we are up to 75% have answered, so I'm going to close that poll and we're going to share the answers. So we've got 4%, they should always match, 91% future data transactions, 39% VAT scheme, and 68% is the non-VATable journals response as well. So over to you, Michael, for the answers.
Thank you, Matt. Right, let's get stuck straight in. So question 10. Where can you see which tax codes belong to the VAT boxes in your VAT return? So answer to that one was use the drill down. It's the simplest option. So when you calculate that VAT return, or even if it's a VAT return you've already reconciled, you can just click on that figure. Give it a click. It'll drill down. It'll show you the initial sort of table, what we term drill down level 1, where it's transaction type by tax code. So that's probably the easiest way of doing that. Obviously, otherwise, I suppose you could visit our help center, but it wasn't one of the options. So correct answer there, use the drill down on the VAT return. Next question, can you post a journal to appear on your VAT return? So yeah, journals are picked up on your VAT return as long as they have a VATable tax code. So that's the key. Most journals that you will post will have a T9 tax code. It'll pick that non-VATable tax code up that we mentioned in was it question 1 or the first section of tax codes? It'll pick that non-VATable tax code up by default, but you can override that. So it is VATable, such as maybe, I think hire purchase is always an example we always use. If you're entering the details of a hire purchase agreement, sometimes it's easier to do that via a journal. So as long as you enter the relevant tax code against the relevant lines that you want to be picked up, they will appear on your VAT return. Question 12, why might your figures not match the control account balances? So a little bit different, this question, gave you a few more things to think about. So why might they not, the figures on your VAT return, why might they be different to the control account? So first answer there, they should always match. Not really. There are loads of reasons why they might not. So future dated transactions, obviously those future dated transactions, they're going to be showing on the control account balance, but won't yet be picked up on the VAT return. The VAT scheme, again, it can determine obviously how your VAT return calculates. So if you're on cash accounting, for instance, the invoice, the VAT from the invoice would be picked up on the control account. But actually, when you generate the VAT return, it's the payment against that invoice that would be picked up. So essentially on cash accounting, for instance, on the control account, what you're left with is the VAT that against transactions that you haven't essentially yet paid. And then finally, the non-VATable journals are posted to the control accounts. Again, a non-VATable journal, a T9 tax code, if you've posted them to that. So that might be things like your VAT transfer, that would be one, which should go as a non-VATable tax code. That's where you're just clearing down those balances. But if you've entered other journals, you may have intentionally meant to have used a VATable tax code. It would be included in the day books, but if it's non-VATable, it's not going to be picked up on the VAT return itself. So give yourself a point for each that you got right there. So options 2, 3, and 4. Right, quick flying round. Back to Matt.
Super duper. Thank you very much, Michael, on that one. Another quick round for you now. Round 4, VAT verification settings. This one is a total of 2 questions. We begin with question 13. That should be in front of you now. So please select one. VAT verification settings. They indicate something is wrong with your data. They indicate something is potentially wrong, just needs reviewed. Or offer HMRC to verify your VAT return submission. Again, Abby ran this section, but I also went through it during part 1 of the VAT submission. So there's been 2 webinars that have covered this particular aspect. The VAT verification settings, the menu that you get to select different options from. Do they indicate something's wrong with the data, indicate something is just potentially wrong and needs reviewed, or they offer HMRC to verify your VAT return submission? Getting some great answers flying in at the moment. As soon as we get to that 75%, we'll switch over to the second and final question of VAT verification settings. Not many questions on this round. Brilliant, we are there. So let's share the responses so far. So 1% say it indicates something is wrong with the data, 91 say indicates something is potentially wrong, and 8% believe they offer HMRC. Again, wait for Michael to go through the answers for you. Final question of the round, question 14 in total. The settings identify an invoice that has not been updated. What should you do? So this is a scenario. The settings identify an invoice that has not been updated. What should you do? Should you ignore it? Should you check it and update it to the ledgers, or delete the invoice from invoices and credits? What's the best angle for you here in this scenario? So again, this is more about best practice and processing like you would use. This is just a kind of what should you do? What is the best practice in this scenario? Again, my lips are sealed further than that because I will start revealing the answers again. And that is the job of Michael today, not I. So just to recap, the settings identify an invoice that has not been updated. What should you do? Ignore it, check it and update the ledgers, or delete the invoice from invoices and credits. Let's see where you all went. So 100% said check it and update it to the ledgers. Over to Michael for the answers.
Thank you, Matt. Right, let's get straight into the answers then. So for the VAT verification settings, first question in this round, question 13, was VAT verification settings. They basically indicate if something potentially wrong and needs to be reviewed. So it's not necessarily saying it is wrong, it's just saying, why, what about this one? Have you seen? When these were introduced quite a few years ago now, the idea was that the verification settings would just try and almost like build your confidence a little bit when you were calculating the VAT return. It was always the feedback we got. People were really nervous. So these checks were introduced just to try and build that confidence a little bit, to try and spot those common things that people would probably contact our support team about and say, oh, I've reconciled the VAT return, but I forgot about this, or I missed this, or I haven't done that. So that's the idea of those settings. So just say it's potentially something that you need to check just to see if it's right or not. So again, give yourself a point if you got that one. Question 14, so the scenario that Matt described. So the settings identify an invoice that has not been updated. What should you do? Well, I don't think we'd ever advise you to just ignore it. Obviously, some people do. It's not something we would recommend. The idea is check it and update it to the ledgers. So if it is right, why have you entered it? Why has it got that date? You haven't updated it to the ledger, so it doesn't impact on essentially your ledgers. Obviously, your VAT return itself is based around those transactions, so it needs to be updated to the ledgers to be picked up on the return. If it is just an old invoice, maybe it hasn't been updated, then potentially you could just delete it. Should it have been entered in the first place? Is it an invoice you've entered and actually the customer come back to you before you had a chance to update and just said, actually, let's not proceed with that one. But we're going to give you a point if you chose option 2, check it and update it to the ledgers. Right, let's get back over to Matt for round 5.
Superb. Round 5, running reports. So in this round, we have 3 questions. The first question is number 15 in the entire quiz. It should be in front of you now. What's the simplest way to see how a value on your VAT return calculates? So what's the simplest way to see how a value on your VAT return calculates? Use the drill down, use the VAT return detailed report, use the daybooks reports. This is a webinar hosted by Michael. We went into VAT reports in depth. It was a well-attended webinar as well. So what's the simplest way to see how a value on your VAT return calculates? Use the drill down, use the VAT return detailed report, and use the daybooks reports. That was answered quite speedily, that question, so I'm going to be closing the poll soon because you've all done rather well there. Let's see where the majority went. So 77% used the drill down, 22% used the VAT return detailed report, and 1% for using the daybooks report. Next question. In step 2 of the VAT return wizard, when generating VAT reports, why might a report be grayed out? Is it access levels? So the user just doesn't have access to the report isn't applicable to your VAT scheme, or no transactions for that report are included in the return. So in step 2 of the VAT return wizard, when you're generating the VAT reports, why might a report be grayed out? Access levels, the report isn't applicable, or no transactions for that report are included in the return. Superb answers coming through. Superb. Mixed bag of answers on this one. And I'm going to close the poll there, and let's have a quick look and see where the majority went. So the majority, 51% said no transactions for that period, 38% say the report isn't applicable, and 11% are going for access levels. Final question of the round here, 17. We're almost there. So what might cause a transaction to appear on your VAT return but not be included on the relevant daybooks report? So what's the cause of that? Is it tax code? Is it the transaction date? Already VAT reconciled? A couple of questions coming in with regarding the earlier questions. I'll try and get back to those when I can. But I'm just going to focus on the current question if that's okay for now. So question 17, what might cause a transaction to appear on your VAT return but not to be included on the relevant daybooks report? Tax code, transaction date, or already VAT reconciled? Brilliant. Nearly there. And this is the last question of the round 5 running report. I'm going to be handing over to Michael in just a moment. Just a couple more people to answer. If you can make a selection, that would be wonderful. And then we'll close and we'll have a look at where the majority have gone with this. So there we have it. We've reached the magic number. 13% say tax code, 65% say transaction date, and 22% already VAT reconciled. Over to Michael for the answers.
Thank you, Matt. We'll get stuck straight in. So running reports, first question in this round. Question 15. So what's the simplest way to see how a value on your VAT return calculates? Something that Matt would have covered in the VAT return session as well, something I covered in detail on the VAT report session as well, and it's used the drill down. Some people are still biased to generating reports, so you do have that VAT return detailed if you want it, or the daybooks reports, but the simplest way is just to use that drill down. Just as a quick reminder, if I quickly show you, I've got a VAT return that's calculated here. We can see the figures on the VAT return. This is something that's available to you as well after you've reconciled. So if you ever need to look back at an old VAT return, you can always open it up and then you've got the drill down functionality. So this is a UK VAT return, this one that you're looking at. If you're in Ireland, you'll have obviously similar look, different boxes. But again, where you've got this little icon next to a value, you can click on it to start drilling down. So it resolves loads of queries that our support team receive. So nice, easy option, that one. So again, points if you chose option 1, which was to use the drill down. Question 16, in step 2 of the VAT return wizard, when generating VAT reports, why might a report be grayed out? So the answer to that one is no transactions for that report are included in the return. So access levels doesn't play a part in this scenario. and also the fact that the report isn't applicable to your VAT scheme. That's not one of the answers either. So it's no transactions for that report are included in the return. Just in case anyone's getting confused, but possibly what we were referring to there. Again, if I just show you, if I share my screen very quickly, we're on step 2 of the VAT return. We go to print the VAT return itself, and you'll see the adjustments option in my case is grayed out. And that's because I haven't posted an adjustment using the make adjustments option. I have included an earlier unreconciled, so there was a late entry that I included in the calculation, so that one is available. That would be grayed out if I didn't include any, so that report just wouldn't be available. So that's what it refers to. And then finally, last question in this round, what might cause a transaction to appear on your VAT return but not be included on the relevant day books report? So the answer to this one is simply its transaction date. So for a transaction not to be included on the day books report, it doesn't. The day books report doesn't filter by tax code. So it doesn't matter what tax code. You might remember if you did attend that session, if you were really paying attention, there was a combination of T1 and T0 transactions in that sort of first section on that day books report. So it'll pick up all tax codes. It's just literally a day books report is just a list of those transaction types that meet the criteria. It doesn't look at whether a transaction is VAT reconciled or not. So the answer to this one is transaction date. It's something that you will specify when you run the report. If you are comparing it to the likes of your detailed VAT return report, then you'll probably specify that transaction date range. If you've got any late entries, they're not going to be included on that day books report. So something to watch out for. It often accounts for that difference. So that completes the answers for this section. I'm going to hand back to Matt.
Thank you, Michael. So this is the final round of the actual quiz itself, round 6, corrections. There we are. Now, after this round of 3 questions, there is going to be a bonus question asked of you all. Very excited, the first time that we've had one, Michael's creation, a very special bonus question. So we'll get these 3 out of the way and we'll get straight on to that. So first question, question 18, corrections. Should be in front of you now. What happens if you delete a VAT reconciled sales invoice? So covered this off yesterday. What happens if you delete a VAT reconciled sales invoice? You can't. The invoice deletes and that's it. Or a credit is posted to reverse the invoice. So again, hopefully it's fresh in the memory from yesterday. What happens if you delete a VAT reconciled sales invoice, an SI? This was in the demonstration as well. Good chunk of answered so far, just a couple more and I'll be able to reveal the answers for you. Superb. So the majority, 80% say a credit is posted to reverse the invoice, 4% the invoice deletes and that's it. 16% say you can't. Next question. Question 19. I love this question. Which of these is a non-critical transaction field? Is it tax code, date, reference, or net amount? So I went through the differences between critical and non-critical fields. Again, did a demonstration on this as well. So I'm not going to explain again which they are because it may give the answer away. But using your memories and your recollection, which one of these is non-critical? If you came to edit a transaction, let's say, would it be the tax code, the date, the reference, or the net amount? Again, I'm going to say super impressed with the responses that I've received so far. I'm going to be closing off that question soon. And there we have it. We're at 75%. I'm going to share the responses. I'm proud to say 100% say reference. I wonder. See what Michael says when he goes through the answers. The final question, question 20, before we get to the bonus question. Again, with corrections, if a reversing transaction is posted, when will it be included on your VAT return? It won't. It will automatically adjust the original VAT return, or you should include it as a late entry on your next return. Again, we did a demonstration of this. Hopefully it'll be fresh in the memory. If a reversing transaction is posted, when will it be included on your VAT return? It simply won't be. It will automatically adjust the original VAT return, or you should include it as a late entry on your next return. Again, a lot of people have answered on this one. So we're almost there at the end. And we have sufficient responses. So a couple more seconds, I'm going to close the poll. And we're going to go over to Michael for the answers before the bonus question. So here we are. The majority, 92%, say you should include it as a late entry on your next return. 6% say it'll automatically adjust the original VAT return. 2% say it won't. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Matt. Couldn't find the right button there. Right, okay, so let's quickly run through the answers to round 6, so corrections. So question was, what happens if you delete a VAT reconciled sales invoice? Now, quite simply, a credit note would be posted to essentially reverse that. So it's a bit like if you couldn't delete a sales invoice and you needed to manually reverse it, you would post a credit. So the software will do that for you. It can't just delete the invoice because it is VAT reconciled. You've accounted for it on the VAT return. So essentially what it will do is it will reverse it. It'll do that automatically for you. Question 19, and I'm pleased to see you were all paying attention when Matt ran through his webinar the other day. So obviously you very engaged with the session. So which of these is a non-critical transaction field, meaning that essentially non-critical, meaning that you can just edit the transaction or you can edit that field without it having to post a copy of the transaction to the end of your audit trail. So things like your tax code, your dates, your nets, any sort of amounts, they are what you would term critical, but your text-based fields, your reference field, the extra reference, the details, the description, those are what you would term your non-critical fields. It will just let you change those. Even on a VAT reconciled transaction, you'll be able to update that field and save your changes without having to, or without the software actually posting any further adjustments. So reference is right. So I think 100% of you voted for that one. So well done. Last question, just before we get on to that final round. If a reversing transaction is posted, when will it be included on your VAT return? So if you have entered an invoice, it was reconciled, and you've deleted it, so the software's had to post a credit note to reverse the effects of that invoice, when will that transaction be included on your return? So some of you voted for it won't, which is wrong. Second option was it will automatically adjust the original VAT return. So if you think back to one of the questions earlier, can we make adjustments to transactions to a reconciled VAT return? We can't do that. Once a transaction is reconciled, essentially that VAT return it's cast in stone, that VAT return, so we can't make changes to it. So the correct answer is, when you run your next VAT return, it'll show that as a late entry because it'll have the same date as the original transaction that was used to reverse it. And then it'll identify that when you calculate your VAT return, it'll identify that and it'll say, right, do you want to include it or ignore it? And you should include those late entries. So correct answer, you should include it as a late entry on your next return. So that's it from myself. Back to Matt. to take you onto the final round and finish off the webinar.
Thank you, Michael, for that. Wonderful going through the demonstrations and reading out the answers. Fantastic sage brain. So always best to rely on him and lean on Michael for the knowledge there. But let's get to it. This is the last question, bonus question, and we want you to type your answers into the questions. It is an anagram. So solve the anagram. You're going to have 1 minute, and then I'm going to reveal the answer. But get ready to type the answer into the question section. In front of you, you should now see the anagram. So what could this be translated to? Activate fitting versions. It's not a sentence I've ever said before, or probably will ever say again, apart from tomorrow when we rerun the quiz. But activate fitting versions. What's that an anagram of? It's not easy. I will give you that. Michael's design, this even tripped me over. But if we think about the subjects in which we've covered, what could this be? As we approach the minute of this being up, I'm going to give a couple of more hints. So this could be a place in which you would select maybe from a menu of things that your VAT return may detect when it's being calculated, potentially. So what would that be? It's the title of one of the webinars as well. Brilliant. Somebody has it. Excellent. Flying through. There was a winner. I'll address you by your first name. But yeah, excellent, cool. And I'm going to reveal the answer now because we have everybody flying through. Watch your screens. It will be revealed. And there it is. A bit of PowerPoint magic there, created by myself. VAT verification settings, superb. So well done to Fiona, I believe it was. The fastest at the button there. So Fiona, award yourself 2 bonus points, and anybody else who got it, you can have a point as well. But Fiona, remember, give yourself 2 for that one because you were the quickest. That was absolutely excellent. And tomorrow, if you are resitting the quiz, what I would ask is that you just please don't just straight away guess it within the first 3 seconds. We may consider changing that. Don't know yet. But as always, thank you for your attendance today. We have slightly overrun it. It's 3 minutes past 3, so I'll whiz through the final parts of the webinar for you. If you do need further support, sage.co.uk/help. There's help guides and articles and everything available for you there. Any questions that we haven't been able to answer, we will answer after the quiz, send you an email. Again, there is the list of resources for you. Go to sage.co.uk/help, Sage 50 accounts desktop, manage your VAT, that tile, and then select which is applicable. So this is all well and good, and you will get a recording of this, a question that has been asked a couple of times, yes, it will be sent to you an hour after it is concluded, and the conclusion is now. So again, thank you very much for your time and your efforts today. Again, all a bit of fun. Once we have verified that you've attended 5 sessions and also this quiz today, we'll send out the badge to you, and we'll be with you by the latest end of July. But on that note, again, thank you very, very, very much for your attendance. And yes, there are a couple of people requesting for answers to be sent across. What we'll do is email them to you. And the recording will obviously be sent as well. Brilliant. Have a lovely evening. Speak soon. Bye for now.